With Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, we're supposed to stop eating burgers, stop taking cars, stop taking airplanes. But guess who's doing all of those things? One would think that with only 12 years left until the end of the world, she and her staff would be leading by example, right? Not exactly. Also, President Trump is stepping in to force colleges and universities to actually honor free speech. Yeah, that we have to talk about that in 2019. That's the state of the country. We'll go over that plus a whole lot more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
Okay, so over the weekend, the New York Post ran a series of articles that were just great. They dug into Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign finances and some of her practices, both, that she does and her staff does. And it's really interesting when you contrast that with what she's talked about with the Green New Deal. I mean, remember, she went on a show last week, we covered it with Burgergate, saying that people should stop eating cows. She said that we should overhaul our whole transportation system. No more cars, no more planes. We need to rely on mass transportation, things like that. But she's not practicing what she preaches, and the New York Post called her out on it. And it's just really interesting, not only what they found out, but her reaction and the whole situation that is typical left wing. It's like, we'll let government do it, but I'm not going to do it myself unless forced. And we'll get into that in just a second. But let's look at what the New York Post had to say in their article. Since declaring her candidacy in May 2017, Ocasio-Cortez's campaign heavily relied on those combustible engine cars, even though a subway station was just 138 feet from her Elmhurst campaign office. She listed 1,049 transactions for Uber, Lyft, Juno, and other car services, federal filings show. The campaign had 505 Uber expenses alone. The story went on to say, in all, Ocasio-Cortez spent, over $29,000 on those emission-spewing vehicles, along with cars and van rentals, even though her Queens headquarters was a 1-minute walk to the 7 train. The campaign shelled out only a little over $8,000 on 52 MetroCard transactions. So that's for cars. That's talking about the cars. What about the airplanes? Here's what the New York Post reports. Her campaign embraced the friendly skies, logging 66 airline transactions costing over $25,000 during campaign season. The Democrat firebrand or her staff took Amtrak far less, only 18 times, despite high-speed rail being the cornerstone of her Save the World strategy. So how did this go over with Her Royal Highness, the Ocasio-Cortez? Not very well. Here's what she tweeted over the weekend. Cortez said, "I also fly and use AC. Living in the real world as it is isn't an argument against working toward a better future. The Green New Deal is about putting a lot of people to work in developing new technologies, building new infrastructure, and getting us to 100% renewable energy." Now, her second part there about putting a lot of people to work is very interesting. And I've got some comments on that, but let's get to another tweet that she posted over the weekend. The Post put the fact that I get into cars while proposing a plan to invest in better car technology on their front page. Pack it up, folks. The Pulitzer's been decided. No one can rival this kind of hard-hitting journalism. So actually, in response to that one, this actually is hard-hitting journalism when you've got kind of the standard bearer now of the radical left, the Democrat darling in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She makes headlines with whatever she does. So to question her, to actually examine what she's doing relative to what she's preaching is actual journalism and digging into it. But her previous comment about this being an idea of putting a lot of people to work really speaks volumes about the left. Because one would think that with only 12 years left, even if this were enacted, there's only so much the government can do in that short a time. The only way to really get this done, if she wanted it, is for people to embrace it. But that's not her style, because all she believes in is we're going to have this massive government program. We're going to have the government come in and force people to do things, to change things, to tear down buildings and build them back up again or whatever she's going to do. Meantime, she's not even practicing what she preaches. And that is the key right there, because with only 12 years left till unchangeable circumstances tear this planet apart, she should be out there every day saying, hey, look, I ride my bike to work. Hey, I'm not eating, meat, or my staff's not having big juicy burgers. And you guys need to do the same thing. We'll see what government can do later on if we can push this through. But in the meantime, everybody has to do their part to change. And she's not doing it. And that's the key right there, is that, yeah, it's fine to, for her to propose some big government program. But in the meantime, what is she doing? What is example she's doing for all her followers in the left? Don't they think it's odd that she's not doing that when she's, 138 feet from a subway station during campaign season, and they're taking cars and Ubers and Lyfts and all of this stuff? It just shows the hypocrisy of the left, that they will force government action on people rather than simply encouraging people to change their own behavior. That's what she should be doing. She should be living an example for others, and of course, she's not doing it. So we'll keep on that. Burgergate is really taking off, and we'll see if her chief of staff and other people change their habits. In the meantime, over the weekend, President Trump spoke at CPAC, and it was a great speech, off the cuff, and he hit on a number of topics. One of them we're going to cover today, because last week we talked about Hayden Williams, who works for the Leadership Institute. He was sent to the Berkeley campus to represent Turning Point USA, a conservative organization for students. And he set up a table out there in their quad area or public commons area. And he was approached by two students. And I showed the video last time. And it was not a good scene. I mean, they were cursing at him. They were pushing him. They were shoving him. They knocked his table over. They threatened him. And then one of these guys actually punched him several times, one of them right in the head. And so a big, controversy erupted, because it was really slow to investigate. And it's like, without the pressure of Hayden and others coming down on Berkeley, I don't know if anything would have been done. But luckily, they kept the pressure up. And you could see Hayden's face right here after the punch. This is a few days after even. They finally caught the guy, and here's his mugshot. He's Zachary Greenberg, and so we'll see what happens to him. I believe he's supposed to face the judge today, but this caught President Trump's attention, and he brought Hayden on stage, talked about him a little bit, and here's the first clip from President Trump and the speech.
Here's the one thing. I learned a number of things. First of all, he could take a punch. Muhammad Ali could take a punch. He can take a punch. Because you weren't going to go down no matter how. That was a hell of a hard punch. He was a strong guy.
So what I liked is this next clip, because he really turned Williams into a metaphor for what a lot of us face, and especially a lot of young conservatives on campuses today. Take a listen.
He took a hard punch in the face for all of us. Remember that. He took a punch for all of us. And we can never allow that to happen. And here is, in closing with Hayden, here's the good news. He is going to be a very wealthy young man. That's okay.
So I find that just awesome, because this is what conservatives face. And Williams really is a metaphor for what's going on. He took a punch, yes. He took a punch not just for the Leadership Institute or not just for Turning Point USA, but he took that punch, documented on video, for all of us that face this double standard where Democrats and the left preach tolerance and acceptance, and yet they are the most intolerant and most unaccepting, to the point of violence. When you see Antifa on college campuses, or you see incidents like this, it's the conservatives that are getting beat up. It's the conservatives who are getting run off campus or not allowed to even speak on campus. So President Trump had enough of that, and he added this little part in his speech.
Today, I'm proud to announce that I will be very soon signing an executive order requiring colleges and universities to support free speech if they want federal research dollars.
So I think that's just awesome, because what happens now, what's going on now as far as research grants, the federal government doles out something like $20 billion to universities for federal research grants. Now, if it is, if he has to hold that money hostage for colleges and universities to simply, enforce and embrace the First Amendment, then so be it. Because, what are the cornerstones of American society and civil debate is freedom of speech. And more on college campuses, it's one-sided. It's the left and only the left. And if you disagree with those words or thoughts or actions, you are not a person. You cannot speak. You shouldn't even be there. You're not welcome. And that's not how it should be on college campuses. And if Trump can do something, if we can leverage these, federal research grants so that we can actually have free speech and conservatives can walk around campus, try and recruit others, engage in debate and not be afraid, then we're off to a good start. So more power to them. I think it's great, and we need more of that. We need more people speaking out. We need more Hayden Williams on campuses, engaging in civil debate, not violence. Leave that to the left, and let our ideas get out. And the only way they'll get out is if the universities come on board, because they are sanctioning this activity from the left. They are complicit in silencing conservative voices. And with a new generation of conservatives coming up, we need those voices. So finally, I want to wrap up today with just a little story out of New Jersey, because it just seems like, things are getting crazier and crazier by the day. So we have Wanacue, New Jersey. Their high school is, preparing for their prom, and they put out, the school board or the superintendent voted on not allowing limos to the prom. They've now organized these school buses that will be chaperoned with a $15 fee that everyone has to take to the prom. So no more parents dropping them off, no more rented limos for friends to share the experience. And of course, this has caused an outrage, because that is part of the experience for a lot of people. Now, I couldn't afford my mom couldn't afford a limo when I went to prom, but it's a big thing for a lot of people. And one of the things the superintendent said was that we're putting in this policy not only for safety, but for equity, meaning that, since this person can't afford a limo, we're not going to have limos. So, I ask, what's next? Are you going to put a limit on how much you can spend for a dress? Because I guarantee some are going to show up with fancier dresses than others. That's just part of life, So don't knock these kids or these parents for wanting to make prom the most memorable, the most fun experience they can by putting rules like this in, which are just ridiculous. So that's just, it just is a small story, but it shows how people get out of hand. And luckily next week, there's going to be a vote. Parents are going to protest. Students are going to be there, and hopefully they'll overturn this. So that's our show for today, folks. Please sign up. Please encourage your friends. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.